Great. Video games.
Mm-hmm.
There are some of those.
Is that your Brad impression?
Yeah, no. This is, Oi, it's video games.
Brad playing the role of
Brad.
Vinnie Jones.
Is Brad on the meet now? What was that? I looked away for a second.
Cool. It's time to play the video games, innit? I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima. I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima.
Good.
Oh, Jeff's back.
I'm glad.
Yeah, hi. No, that's Brad called in, and he just wanted to just make sure that the podcast got back on track. He was like, "You guys are talking a lot about drugs, and this is never going to get monetized on YouTube. What the fuck are you doing?" And so he's not wrong. Ghost of Tsushima, it's all right. That game is all right. I got to the start of Act. That said, I think I have a lot of problems with it that are only getting stronger the more I play of it. But that game at least starts out as pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm in Act 2, it's definitely this feeling of like, man, I have been doing all. So I did a lot of side stuff, not all of it, because eventually I was like, I'm going to finish Act 1 because the podcast is coming up, and I should at least see like what the next big story mission is before we get into that. So I went and got my grappling hook and did all that stuff, and
cool.
And got into Act 2, and the combat is so repetitive and like so easy. And I saw that they were patching in a new difficulty setting and some other options around accessibility. Some other kind of stuff around.
Yeah, they've got a lethal difficulty setting now.
Yeah, which I don't know that I'm like. I guess there's some stuff I could tweak. I guess I think what I need to do, I need to turn off aim assist because I turned that on without playing the game. I was like, oh, aim assist. I mean, this is a console game, so you want aim assist. And then the way the bow will snap to targets that are not people, like I'll be aiming at someone who is too far away for the aim assist, and then it will snap to a torch like a lantern nearby. And I'll be like, no, I do not want to do that. I'm trying to shoot this fool in the head. And I can definitely reach him from here. Yeah, just so I probably need to turn that off. It's gosh, I really don't like the way the stance stuff. I think is like super like a bad way for them to go. I think they picked like maybe the dullest way to flesh out the combo system and combat in that game.
There's so little variety to the different stances.
Yeah,
like it falls into my like pet peeve of like, okay, well, we've got to switch to this stance to attack this guy now and switch back to the other one.
It's like a rhythm, not a rhythm game, but it's like you're just playing memory. You're just like, oh, this guy's got a pole, so I need to hold R2 and hit this button. Oh, this guy's got a shield. I need to hold R2 and hit this, and then triangle, triangle, triangle when he's busted and I'm stabbing him. It's not. It doesn't make it more difficult. It doesn't make it, and it doesn't add real depth.
It adds a layer of like to the flow, which I actually liked because it was so bare bones at first.
Totally. I guess I wish that it had a combat tree that was expansive and interesting. Yeah, and the things that you were getting, like I finished like a lot of the skill tree and a lot of this other stuff. And it doesn't expand in cool ways. Like I really like this game, and I'm having like a really good time with it. But there's just enough stuff that you like over the course of playing it. You're like, man, what if this was better? What if this was better? What if this was better? Like this game could be incredible, but the combat, I think the stance change stuff is a bummer because like imagine if instead it had been like, oh, we've got combos and things that you are going to engage with on a deeper level that you can use to open up the shield guy or get around the spear guy or like there's just so many different ways they could have done that. And the stance change stuff, it just feels like this easy mode thing of just like, I don't need to use this, but if I do it, I can chew up these guys. I can just chew these guys up. And
I feel like a game that did that really well this year is Final Fantasy VII Remake is a game that is like uses its combat system to give you the options to approach the battle from different ways rather than just like mindlessly kind of switching between. I haven't played Tsushima yet, so I'm taking this off of what I've read and what you guys are saying, but it sounds like Remake might kind of be more what you're looking for there.
Yeah,
another good example is Neo. If you're talking about stance changes, you know, your moveset changes dramatically once you switch around, and you have
Neo is crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
No, I didn't finish Neo, but I liked the time I spent with it. I think I just eventually hit a point with it where I was like, oh, I am lost in this area and also just getting fucking worked, and and at some point just fell off of it. But Neo is cool. Yeah, like I mean, Ghost of Tsushima seems like a Far Cry game to me in a lot of ways. Like the skill tree stuff is similar in that it's like, well, what if you could stab 2 guys instead of 1? Oh, what if you could assassinate 3 guys instead of 2? And like Far Cry had very much that like, oh, well, if you spec this way on the skill tree, now you can do the stealth kills to the guys wearing armor. And like this has that type of progression in its skill tree. And it's fine, but I feel like within like 3 hours, I'd plucked everything off of the tree that I wanted. Like the stance upgrades, the upgrades on the stances and stuff don't feel all that useful. Like it's some additional moves and stuff that you don't really need, because when you're changing stances generally all you're really doing is just mashing. You're changing stances so you can mash against them to break them down, and once they're defenseless, just stick them. Pretty much. So like the idea of just like, well, what if this kick that you could charge up did a little more knockback? I'm like, that's like fun. Like doing that lets me juggle and do some goofy shit, but the combat is not built in such a way where you really benefit from that stuff in a meaningful way.
I did find the kick useful. I want to stand up for the
cool.
kick.
All right,
because the kick will knock them on their ass,
thing,
and you can run up to them and just like one shot them. It's actually pretty useful.
The kick actually does seem like the one thing on that like hold down heavy charge. Like each stance has one, and most of them are just like, I'm gonna stick you, and then if I upgrade, I can go ba twice. Like, nah, like you don't need it. You don't need it. Like the game is not
into a sheep.
But like the standoff stuff, like upgrading that is actually like a really good example of like, here's this badass thing. I guess you get to be too much of a monster in that game too early, and you outpace the difficulty really quick. Like between doing I did enough side stuff in the first area where it's like, oh, I have almost all the sword upgrade stuff, and you know, like really cranking my way through the upgrade tree and all this, and then it's just like, okay, I'm gonna walk into this battle, and then I'm gonna push up on the D-pad, and then 3 guys are dead. Boom. Done.
Or if you max out your armor, you can actually take up to 5. That's what I'm doing right now. And it's like, okay, you go into an enemy stronghold, you hit up, you kill everybody that's within eyeshot, and then it just goes back to neutral again.
And then you're like stealth again.
It's pretty crazy, but it gets a little old after a while.
And I think I wish that like I wish that the game, for as much as it's playing on these themes of you are a samurai, you fight with honor, oh wait, you sure did just stab a bunch of people from behind. Like I wish that was a dynamic system that was reactive and changed up based on how you played. If there was something almost like a Paragon Renegade aspect to it, of just like you played honorably, and as such, this story stuff, like Yuna doesn't think you're cool anymore, but your uncle sure does.
Right.
Or like, yeah, you and Yuna are tight, and your uncle, which is actually it seems like that's the default of just like, hey, you know, you and Yuna are cool, and your uncle thinks you're up to no good. And I think the thing I realized getting into Act 2 was samurais are pricks, and they're fucking boring as hell. Like, here's a game full of all these cool ass moves that are like way more fun to play with, and maybe that's like their message or something. But it seems like the game, if it was better at rewarding honorable play or something like that, to give you a reason to, because otherwise it's just like, no, I'm gonna throw this bomb into your face and blow you up and then stab you, and then I'm gonna do this and do like use all of the aspects of the combat just to have a good time and fuck around.
Slit your throat with honor.
Exactly. Yes. Or yes. But yes, the samurais, like basically this game feels like it's just painting samurais, just like, yo, we're like Judge Dredd, basically.
Sounds like a bit of
which
a
is
bummer,
probably not too far off, but
because like I was mildly interested in this game for like the stealth aspects they were showing off, but it seems like that a lot of, and I've seen a lot of people compare this to the early Assassin's Creed games too, with like the open world and like how you can approach stealthily, but it seems like a lot of people are just going in loud because that's where like the skill tree wants to like skew towards.
Yes and no. I mean, you know, you like the stealth kills and stuff, like, you know, you can stealth assassinate and build that into a chain where you're killing 3 people in a row. Like I've gone in and taken bases out with arrows and stealth kills, and basically all that's left is the leader just sitting there practicing doing dumb shit, and then I get the like observe bonus for getting close to him, and then just walk up and stick him, which doesn't kill him, but it's a critical strike on a leader. But then he's already so busted up by that point that I'm like, all right, check this out, ba ba ba, you're dead. And yeah, I don't know. I think I kind of want to keep playing it, but also I mostly want to keep playing it, and I'm hoping that like there's just something else there. I know there's like the ghost stance stuff or whatever. But that doesn't sound like it's actually that cool.
No.
And you know, like I went and got the was it the Heaven Breaker or whatever, the triangle and circle unblockable, and I was like, oh, cool, new moves. Like that sounds like something that could help here, but nah, that's not really. That's not.
Yeah,
really,
I started using that against enemies, and like all of a sudden they're dodging it. I'm like, God damn it! I thought this was useful.
Well, it's unblockable. It's not undodgeable.
It's unblockable.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's So I guess like I like it, and I want to keep chipping away at it because it's like it's that checklisty open world game, and sometimes those are okay, especially if you haven't played one for a while. And
I was going to ask, like, what is keeping you going other than curiosity? Like you mentioned, is it just like a very polished example of that? Like,
yeah, it's a really nice looking game, and it's a fun environment to just move around. Like, you know, you get on the horse and ride and just kind of ride from place to place. And occasionally you see like, oh, some dude's up here, I'm gonna stab him. And then you do that and you get back on the horse and get to your destination. And it just seems like there's always one more question mark on the map that's close enough to you that you're just like, well, I'm gonna go see what that is. But then you get there and it's like, oh, it's another fox den. It's another one of these things that I've already done 6 of. And
but then it's over in 10 seconds and you got another question mark to get
right. Exactly. Yeah. So it is like, I feel like from a gameplay perspective, it is this kind of junk food, comfort food thing of just like, this isn't especially challenging. And I feel like there's a ton of missed opportunities across that game with the way it plays and things they could have done from a gameplay perspective that I think would have just made it more engaging. But I do still like it. Like it's something that's just like, you know, you kind of just chip away at it, and it's mindless. Like it is a podcast game type of open world game. It's like the story is not super interesting, but interesting enough. Like it's a great premise and a great setting that I don't think they are making good on from a story perspective, which I think a lot of games do that.
It heats up a little bit at the end of Act 2.
Cool.
Thankfully, yeah, because I'm at a point now where I've maxed out, you know, my skill trees and stuff, and unearthed most of the map, and I'm like, fuck, I don't know what else to do, man. Let's just mainline this shit. So yeah, I'm a little more invested. Yeah, which is very helpful.
It's a game where they put things on the skill tree that let you find the collectibles. Like you can spend your technique points on, just let me find all the collectibles. Like it's that style of open world game.
Cool. I respect that.
Yeah. And you know, like there's are aspects of that I think are just kind of fun to mindlessly bash your way through. And I think like the combat is just mindless enough to where it's like, all right, yeah, I'm going to run in here and stick all these fools and that's a good time. And man, I sure did get all bloody. Yeah. I kind of wish like I wish the armor didn't have stats on it. or bonuses on it. I wish it was like, oh, as you found this armor and now you have this universal, because I'm finding myself, and maybe I shouldn't do this because like who cares? But I find myself going in wearing the stealth armor, and then as soon as I get discovered, going, hang on, let me change to my samurai armor because I get way more damage reduction.
1 sec, guys, hold on.
Let me just take this off and put.
Don't look. Turn around.
Put these wood planks on my shoulders, and okay, I'm going to put on the scary mask now because I love to murder. And I probably don't. That's on me. I probably don't need to be doing that because none of it's that hard. But at the same time, like I don't know, like reading the stuff they're doing with the new difficulty mode, that it's like, oh, this will make it harder, but like it's not going to make the combat better. It's not going to make the combat more engaging.
It sounds like it's going to make it more punishing.
Yeah, it's like, okay, now you really need to use these systems the way that they built them, which right now, at least it's a little flexible in that I can not just play the stance game and not just be like, well, I have to be in the right stance to take this enemy out, otherwise I'm going to do this and blah, blah. I think that is a really boring way to play it. And like hearing they're just like, oh, it's gonna extend further, like, hey, we've tightened this up with the windows on the counters, because that's the other thing, is the parry and counter window is just a fucking mile wide.
It's huge. Well, I mean, except for the perfect parries or whatever,
yes, the perfect parries are harder to get, but
yeah,
I still find myself getting enough of them to where it's not that. Yeah, it's not that hard, but it is harder than just kind of knocking out a regular parry. But I don't need to do that many perfect parries, like, because the regular parries are usually pretty good, and you get a little health buff, or you can spec in that direction. But yeah, there's stuff on the skill tree that you don't need, and stuff on the skill tree that I wish there was more of, I guess. So it just feels like a little out of balance or something, and I wish that it was a little. I wish it just feels like a missed opportunity, and I feel like it kind of, like this could be a much better game if the combat was a little more in depth, I guess. But that said, I'm gonna keep playing it. I don't know. So, Jason, have you finished it yet, or are you
just about? Yeah, I'm wrapping things up, and yeah, I should be done this week probably.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward.
I've heard people. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm looking forward to playing it before the end of the year. It's just I've been playing so many open world games lately. Like I did the terrible thing of like trying to dive. I'm like, oh, I need an open world game. I'm gonna play Assassin's Creed Odyssey because I never really got into that, and I was just like, there's so many numbers and this map is so big, and I just need something to hold my hand right now. But I feel like that game, I don't know. I feel like that game needs to be. I feel like I need to play that game. I used to be, I was a fucking nerd, weeb, tween, or whatever, obsessed with Japanese culture, like you are if you're a white kid in California. So I feel like
any kid in California.
Any kid. Yeah.
I don't know that it necessarily would satisfy that particular aspect. I think it's cool in some ways, and all that. Jason, I've heard people describe Act 2 as just like a massive grind of just like it is like this interminable part of the game. And so I got to like the start of Act 2, did a couple of little things, and I was like, all right, I should just stop, because as I'm watching it unfold, I'm like, oh man.
It feels like you're doing the same thing that you were in Act 1, and it's just a repeat of that. You're building up your forces to take on another,
right,
like castle or whatever. So yeah, get through that one as fast as possible. And then at the end of that, it heats up a little bit. Yeah.
There's a
little spicy.
I feel like there's, looking through the trophies and stuff like that, I feel like they're all incredibly attainable. And so there's some part of me that looks at it and goes like, well, with the way that they've built in the way to find collectibles and all that stuff, like, man, I could get all these trophies.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Those chases I've given up on those. I don't know. I don't find myself chasing after trophies that often. So
yeah,
it's too much of my time. Sorry.